Fire in the Haunted Castle. It was May 11th, 1984, a typical spring evening at Six Flags Great Adventure Amusement Park in New Jersey. Visitors eagerly lined up outside the Haunted Castle, a popular walk-through attraction made from 17 interconnected trailers, filled with dark hallways, creepy decorations, and frightening special effects. Around 6:35 p.m., as guests wandered through the maze-like corridors, a small fire quietly sparked inside. Initially, visitors believed the flames were part of the scary attraction, adding to the realistic horror effect. However, as dense smoke quickly filled the narrow hallways, panic set in. Teenagers inside began desperately searching for exits, stumbling blindly into walls and becoming disoriented by the darkness and thick smoke. Shockingly, the haunted castle lacked basic fire safety measures. There were no sprinklers, no smoke detectors, and no emergency lights. Even worse, the park had never received a proper fire inspection or operating permit for the attraction. These oversights turned the castle into a deadly trap. Outside, park employees eventually noticed smoke billowing from the attraction and called emergency services. Firefighters from multiple towns raced to the scene, battling the flames for over an hour. Meanwhile, Six Flags remained open, with other guests unaware of the unfolding tragedy. Once the fire was extinguished, rescuers entered the smoldering wreckage and made a devastating discovery. 8 teenagers had become trapped and died, unable to find their way out. The victims, aged between 15 and 19, had entered the haunted castle together seeking thrills, but instead encountering a terrifying and fatal end. In the aftermath, investigations revealed disturbing details. Six Flags had repeatedly ignored warnings from safety consultants urging the installation of fire alarms and sprinklers. The amusement park and its parent company faced charges of aggravated manslaughter, accused of negligence, and reckless disregard for safety. Ultimately, the park was acquitted of criminal charges but paid millions in civil settlements to the victims' families. The tragedy brought about sweeping changes to amusement park safety standards nationwide. New laws required strict inspections and mandated fire detection and suppression systems for attractions like the haunted castle. The castle itself was demolished, replaced by a memorial garden, a solemn reminder of the deadly consequences of ignoring basic safety precautions. Mindbender roller coaster. It was June 14th, 1986 at Galaxyland, an indoor amusement park inside the bustling West Edmonton Mall in Alberta, Canada. Excitement was high as guests lined up for the park's biggest thrill, the Mindbender roller coaster. With its towering loops and intense speed, it was known as the world's largest indoor coaster. Earlier that day, visitors noticed something unusual. The Mindbender had briefly shut down for around 30 minutes. Mechanics were seen working on one of the coaster's trains, specifically the yellow one. Still, park officials quickly reopened the ride, reassuring visitors that everything was fine. Around 7:30 p.m., riders climbed aboard, eager for the adrenaline rush. The train began its journey, rapidly picking up speed and plunging through the coaster's 3 intense loops. But as it reached the final loop, disaster struck without warning. The rear car suddenly started shaking violently. Before anyone could react, the wheel assembly detached completely, sending the car flying off the track at nearly 60 miles per hour. Horrified visitors watched as the derailed car slammed into a concrete pillar, ejecting 4 riders and sending them crashing 25 feet down onto the floor below. Screams filled the park as panic spread among onlookers. Meanwhile, the rest of the coaster train stalled on the loop, rolling backward until it collided heavily into another support structure, leaving riders stranded and terrified. Emergency responders arrived swiftly, treating injured riders and attempting to rescue those trapped on the coaster. Tragically, 3 of the passengers thrown from the ride had already lost their lives on impact. The 4th rider survived but sustained life-altering injuries. In total, 19 others suffered injuries ranging from broken bones to severe bruising and shock. An extensive investigation followed, uncovering serious flaws. Inspectors determined the accident was caused by a combination of inadequate maintenance and a critical design flaw. Bolts holding the wheel assembly in place had come loose unnoticed. Despite earlier reports of rough rides and minor injuries, these signs had been ignored or underestimated by maintenance staff and management. The Mindbender remained closed for over 6 months as it underwent significant safety improvements. New restraints, additional wheel assemblies, and other crucial safety features were added. The tragedy had a lasting impact, forcing amusement parks worldwide to reconsider their safety inspections and maintenance practices. Though the Mindbender reopened and operated safely for decades afterward, the memory of that catastrophic evening remained a stark reminder of the importance of diligent safety practices. Bonsai Pipeline Waterworld. On June 2nd, 1997, excitement was high at Waterworld USA in Concord, California. Nopa High School seniors were celebrating their upcoming graduation with a day of fun at the popular water park. As the afternoon wore on, the students decided to end their trip with one final thrill, the towering Bonsai Pipeline water slide. The Bonsai Pipeline was built for single riders to slide down one at a time, but the seniors had a different plan. Ignoring the park's rules and the lifeguard's repeated warnings, about 30 students pushed their way onto the slide, determined to set a reckless record known as clogging, seeing how many people could descend at once. As the overloaded slide filled beyond capacity, something had to give. Within seconds, a sharp cracking sound echoed across the park. The fiberglass tube suddenly split apart, violently collapsing under the weight of dozens of teens. Bodies and water poured out of the shattered slide, dropping nearly 40 feet onto the hard concrete and landscaping below. Witnesses stood frozen as screams filled the air. Lifeguards and park staff raced to the scene, immediately calling emergency services. The pool beneath ran red with blood and injured students lay scattered on the ground, many unable to move, some unconscious. First responders arrived rapidly, transporting victims to hospitals by ambulance and helicopter. One girl, just 17 years old, suffered severe head and chest injuries and tragically died shortly after arriving at the hospital. 16 other students sustained critical injuries, including broken bones and spinal damage, while many more suffered moderate injuries. Investigations into the incident highlighted serious issues. The slide itself had no inherent defects, but it simply wasn't designed to support the weight of multiple riders simultaneously. Despite clear safety warnings, the single lifeguard at the top of the slide couldn't control the sudden surge of teenagers determined to ride together. The devastating accident led to several lawsuits against the park owners, the school district, and the slide's manufacturer. Eventually, settlements totaling millions were paid to the victims' families and injured students. Additionally, the tragedy spurred California to implement stricter safety laws, requiring mandatory state inspections for permanent amusement park rides. Waterworld USA permanently removed the Bonsai Pipeline and tightened safety regulations across the park. The horrifying events of that afternoon remain a haunting reminder of how quickly excitement can turn into tragedy when safety warnings go unheeded. SeaWorld Orca tragedy. On February 24th, 2010, it was a sunny winter afternoon at SeaWorld Orlando, Florida. Guests gathered at the Dine with Shamu show, excited to watch trainers interact closely with the majestic killer whales. Leading the session was Dawn Bronshaw, a seasoned trainer with over 15 years of experience. Dawn was working with Tilikum, a massive 12,000-pound orca with a known history of aggressive behavior, though most spectators weren't aware of this. As the show came to an end, Dawn lay on her stomach at the pool's edge, affectionately rubbing Tilikum's head as a reward. Without any warning, the scene changed dramatically. Tilikum suddenly grabbed Dawn by her ponytail, pulling her swiftly underwater. Confused spectators watched helplessly, initially unsure if this was part of the act. Seconds later, alarms rang out around the stadium as staff realized something was terribly wrong. Trainers quickly enacted emergency procedures, desperately throwing food and flotation devices into the water, attempting to distract the powerful orca. Tilikum, however, ignored their efforts and refused to release Dawn. He continued to swim frantically, dragging her deeper into the pool. Staff attempted to use net barriers and verbal commands, trying everything to separate Dawn from the massive animal. Yet Tilikum remained unresponsive, refusing to let go of the trainer. Nearly 45 agonizing minutes passed as rescuers struggled to gain control. Finally, trainers managed to maneuver Tilikum into a smaller medical pool where he released Dawn's body. Rescuers quickly retrieved her, but it was tragically too late. Dawn had drowned, suffering severe blunt force injuries inflicted by the whale. Investigations later revealed troubling details. Tilikum had already been involved in 2 previous deaths, raising serious concerns about trainer safety. SeaWorld had been repeatedly warned about the dangers of allowing close contact between trainers and orcas, but these warnings were consistently downplayed or ignored. Following Dawn's death, significant changes occurred. SeaWorld was heavily fined for safety violations, and trainers were permanently banned from performing in the water alongside orcas. The incident drew intense public scrutiny, ultimately prompting SeaWorld to end its orca breeding program and phase out traditional orca performances entirely. The tragedy became a turning point, forever changing the nature of animal entertainment shows and serving as a powerful reminder of the risks involved when warnings about wild animals are underestimated. Dreamworld Rapids tragedy. On October 25th, 2016, it was a calm spring afternoon at Dreamworld, Australia's largest amusement park. Guests were enjoying the Thunder River Rapids ride, a gentle, family-friendly attraction that carried visitors along a simulated river. Earlier that day, the ride had already shown warning signs. A malfunctioning water pump caused 2 breakdowns, but after quick repairs, staff allowed the ride to resume. Most visitors were unaware of the earlier issues. At around 2 p.m., a raft carrying 6 people, 4 adults and 2 children, children neared the ride's end. Suddenly, the same pump failed again, dropping the water level and stalling a raft ahead on the conveyor belt that lifts rafts from the water. Unaware of the danger that lay just ahead, the raft carrying the 6 passengers continued its gentle course downstream. Because of the decreased water flow, it collided violently into the stationary raft. The still-moving conveyor belt continued to pull both rafts forward, forcing the second raft upwards, flipping it nearly vertically into the air in a horrifying instant. Passengers were violently thrown from their seats in seconds of chaos and terror. 4 adults were tragically ejected directly into or pinned beneath the conveyor machinery, suffering catastrophic injuries. Terrified onlookers stood helpless, watching the unimaginable unfold right before their eyes. Amidst the chaos and tragedy, 2 children on board the raft miraculously survived the disaster, narrowly avoiding serious injury as they were thrown clear of the mechanical equipment. Emergency responders arrived quickly, but it was too late. The park was evacuated and the ride shut down. An investigation revealed a history of mechanical problems, 5 malfunctions in the prior week alone. Even worse, staff hadn't been trained for emergencies, and the ride lacked automatic safety systems to detect low water levels. Dreamworld faced intense scrutiny and was fined heavily. The ride was permanently closed and dismantled. In response, Queensland introduced stricter safety laws, and Dreamworld overhauled its protocols.